and hello, everyone. Thank you to the Cost of Freedom. This is another episode that we're having with Dr. Alisha Saucedo, and I hope I said that right, ma'am.
You did, but I'm also not a doctor. I just want to clarify.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying for me. I will say to you all, she is one of the Great Lakes right here in the city of Topeka, Kansas. It has been an honor to walk in sisterhood with you. I mean, it's such an honor to bring you on to have this conversation when we're talking about intimacy, because a lot of times we bypass that, right? We talk about other things in the connection to our ancestors who were being human trafficked in this nation for over 400 years. And we don't talk about how, when we think about intimacy, the rapes that took place during that period of time, and the legacy of pain that has caused individuals within the BIPOC and community, and how on today we still stand with women who are pressing forth towards their healing, men who are pressing forth towards healing. And so the first question I would like to ask you is, first off, let's talk about, what does Juneteenth mean to you?
So as a therapist who works in body-based approaches, I'm always aware of how a question, an experience resonates within my body. And so to start off with, I'll just call attention to the fact that when you ask me about Juneteenth, hearing the word Juneteenth just down to my core is this feeling of warmth. It's a feeling of acknowledgement, of being seen, now acknowledged by this country. But it's a representation of our freedom, whether those who are of darker complected or lighter complected like myself. It represents that we have the ability to be free and gather in community and connect. And so that's what it means to me.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So the question I want us to start with, and that question is, what are the impacts of physical and mental trauma on intimacy? So, and I may have worded it a little bit wrong, but I know for myself, going through trials and tribulations and some of the journeys, just from childhood trauma, how that affected me. And I think about, before even that trauma started, I already had some type of, there was something there in me already. Like you brought attention to the body. It was a little different already. Before, it was already comments made about my body already when I stepped out in public, about the design, the outlay of the gift that I was given called me. And so let's talk a little bit about that. Like, what does that look like? Break that down. What is your viewpoint on that? Because I'm still growing through it and teaching my girls through it, and my son.
Yeah. So I in no way consider myself an expert, but this is what I do on a daily basis in my practice, is work with Black and Brown folks and other who have experienced trauma in childhood or in adulthood, and discuss ways in which they can get back to connecting with their full self, including connection to their body, connection to their mind, both of those things working together as they relate to other people. So before I get too far, there's a couple of things that I could go on and on about this. So I'm going to try to keep it nice and concise. One of my favorite teachers gave me a quote that I will always hold on to, and my clients know I speak about this often, is, when we know our body, we know our boundaries. And I think if we always come from that place and tuning into what messages our body is sending, then we know what kind of boundaries we can put forth and how we can connect with others or not.
So with that quote, you said, when we know our boundaries, when we know our bodies, we know our boundaries. But how many, when we just look out over America, and I don't even want you to quote the number, because I know there's so many that have never gotten the opportunity to know their body, like to know the power. Think about, when we're talking about positive racial identity, and we're looking at our young people who, I mean, there's some shifting that has been made in media and as of late, but think about how many decades, when you looked at television, you didn't see value in your body.
Absolutely. We didn't see value in our body. We also are taught that our bodies are the enemy to other people. And so people of color, get constant reinforcement that our bodies are unsafe, not good. The shape of them isn't acceptable or whatnot. You talked about the over sexualization of young Black bodies earlier, and that consistently happens as well. So as I bring those things up, it's all to say a couple of things. I'm going to put a couple plugs in here. Dr. Tracy Gilbert wrote a book, and I will forget the title of it, but you can find it, and it is on how sexuality has impacted the Black body. And I can get the name of that and get that out to you. Also, for those that have read Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score, you know how much trauma affects the body and how trauma stays within the body. So going back to Dr. Nadine Burke's ACE study, there is research that shows that the more adverse experiences we have that may include attacks or experiences with our body, it changes the way we live, how long we live, how healthy we are. So if we come from that approach, looking at how trauma can impact intimacy, I want to be very clear. Intimacy is emotional intimacy and also physical intimacy. So in order to be connected to people, in my opinion, we must feel safe in our bodies, which means we have to know our body. Secondly, in order to share our bodies with others, if we're trying to have physical intimacy, that emotional safety must be there. And we have to understand and be okay with speaking what is and isn't right for us. And again, I can go on and on about that. But if you think about different diagnoses, like I don't know if it's okay to say this, but like vaginismus or erectile dysfunction, and how trauma plays a part or may play a part in those things because of our emotional well-being, then it definitely affects our physical um, well-being and connection to others.
I thank you so much because, and first off, at any time you're having a conversation with Regina, and Regina's group that comes in to tap in and see, we need to have a real authentic conversation, because healing comes from that point when we tap into those things that have been untapped. Um, and so, my other question to you is, when we look around, our next step up as we're going through the process, what are some ways that we can begin this journey of healing? Dr. Dale Cushenberry, and I love using the word doctor. Maybe I don't even know if Mr. Cushenberry, who used to be the principal for Highland Park High School, great mentor to me as I was growing up. Still, I just honor him so much. But he talked about when we talk about things, right, or we take those steps, right, we're not just taking those steps in initiative that is going to change us, but those steps that we are taking are changing the world around us and the world that are around those people that are around that world. And so when I think about this, the process of us processing through healing and understanding intimacy, I always call intimacy into me see. Into me see. I have to go into me before I can come out of me and love on thee.
Yeah.
But that breakdown allows us to be able to see, like, what do we need to be doing for ourselves, the work within ourselves, so that we can assist with doing the work within our children, with doing the work within our community. But let's go into self first. What are some things we can do with self?
Yeah. So I think oftentimes when people think about taking care of themselves, they think about the of some other people's versions of what self-care is, which means let's go to the spa and let's have chocolate cake. I love me some food and I love the spa. But I don't think that's where our taking care of ourselves begins, and I don't think that's where it stops. I think first we have to think about how we know ourselves intimately, how we connect to our emotional self, how we connect to the parts of us that have shame, how we acknowledge that we may struggle with certain mental health disorders. And starting there, we can honestly begin to address how we impact or engage with those outside of our bodies, right? Um, I also think it is absolutely necessary for us to get back into our bodies. Just real quickly, The body wants to protect itself. So if we are experiencing physical trauma, thinking back to when people were enslaved and the horrors that they experienced on a day-to-day basis, it was necessary for their mind to disconnect from the experiences happening to their body in order to keep them alive. Um, and so you can do research on how when someone is experiencing trauma, how their body responds. The reason that I'm bringing that up is there are times where we stay disconnected from our bodies and walk through our lives day to day, not being aware of what we notice within us. If we notice that we're picking up nonverbal cues that somebody's following us or something, and how that impacts our feeling of safety or awareness, how to protect ourselves. So I say all of that to say is we have to come back in. And methods that are helpful in doing that they sound very cheesy, but it can be through particular mindfulness techniques, embodiment techniques, yoga, dance, for people of color, connection to the earth, gardening, um, taking walks in nature, dancing, singing. Those are all things that can impact the way in which we feel within our own bodies and help us to be aware of what is happening within them. And I work with people on this in little teeny tiny ways every single day. Say you're having a bite of something you really enjoy, take a moment and take a deep breath and notice what sensations pop up in your body that relate to that feeling of joy or pleasure. Something as simple as that can be so powerful.
I love that you brought that up. One of the things is I use is a lot of writing. Me being able to write, me being able to freestyle for me, like just opening up my mouth and just letting the potential, the nuggets in me just pour out in a version where it's not captured in a box, or oh my goodness, I just walk away so energized from that.
Yeah.
And that's healing for me. And that may be someone's so scared, so fearful, ready to run and go hide, but that's been a
Yeah.
journey for me. And that's my authentic truth. I own that.
Absolutely. I love that. And for you, it's the singing. For me, music is a core part of my everyday being. And so the way I feel when I hear certain types of music or the way I move when I listen to it. Throwing pottery is another part of my life that's particularly important. And it's not having access to a pottery wheel. I'm talking about sitting even, on my own deck, hand building a coil pot or something. The feeling sensation of the clay in my hands is really important in noticing, is this pleasurable to me, or how do I feel connected to clay of the earth. So I appreciate.
Yes. So I thank you all for tapping in and join us. Please, I will make sure there's some links within the box that let you know how to get in contact with my dear sister. This is a sisterhood that we formed, and I think from the beginning, it has been consistent and unshakable. I'm looking to see where we're going to go even more. This is an awesome lady. When we talked about the cost of freedom, remember, to get back to understanding your body, you're going to have to do the work. And it's going to get uncomfortable. But I promise you, as you make it through this process of healing, it's going to get so real and relevant to everyone around you that you're going to be able to ignite and resound onto others the authentic you. Thank you for joining us today on the cost of freedom. And thank